right, so here we go. Not yet. Okay, so I'm gonna take some of this plastic wrap. Yeah, I'm gonna take some of this plastic wrap, and the plastic wrap is literally nothing more than to make sure plaster doesn't get into your hair, because plaster does one thing really, really good. It will rip the snot out of your hair. Okay. You have some rockin' cool facial hair, you got hair up here, eyebrows, eyelashes. It will find a way of grabbing that hair and it will destroy it. So you want to be as careful as possible with your hair. And unfortunately we are hairless apes, but we do absolutely have some hair still on us, so we got to take care of that. So here we go. You got a nice little kind of beanie thing going on. Just kind of, there we go.
Are we going to be putting Vaseline on our face?
We're totally putting Vaseline on our face.
Oh.
Okay, so that looks good. Cool.
Yeah,
that looks good. All right, so next step. Yes, Vaseline. Okay. Allergic to Vaseline?
I don't think so.
Good deal. Okay, so here we go. So Vaseline, all it is a petroleum jelly. It's basically like oil and goop, and it's kind of sticky. It looks like boogers, right? You all good there?
Yeah.
Word? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna actually put it over top of your eyebrows, right? If you would like, you can absolutely put like a little dollop over top of your eyelashes. It'll come off, don't worry. That kind of helps with the eyelash rippage. You'd be surprised how painful that can be whenever like 8 of your eyelashes come off at once.
My teacher, my teacher
Okay,
had a friend that did it.
Thanks so much for your input.
She had like the thing and pulled out all her eyelashes.
Oh yeah,
She had the thing and showed us.
and it'll like stick out. Oh yeah, totally. I'm gonna let you put it on just for right now because we're not friends. But I'm gonna let you put on. If you have any other kind of like random little kind of hairs or anything that you might want to put. Okay, beautiful. Don't stress your little sidey burns. I'm gonna put some more plastic wrap over top of that. Okay. So I'm gonna let you do that just so that you're comfortable with the process. Okay.
So just put it on.
Yeah, you can kind of goob it on there. Yep, you're gonna look good. The ladies will like it. I promise. Okay. Move and shake. I'm just gonna put a little more plastic wrap right on top because you're rocking some way cool sideburns. So we're gonna take care of those. And now you can hear nothing. So feel free to talk about him behind his back. He can't hear anything. Okay. So looking pretty kosher. Okay. So feeling good? Petroleum? Do you want to at all? Are you feeling okay? You ready to lose some eyelashes?
Yeah.
A little bit. A little bit. Just a little bit. Close your eyeball and right on top. Just a little bit.
Like where?
Just right over top. Like eyeshadow. You use that a lot. Yeah, like over top of your eyelashes. There you go. He's got it. He's got it. Yeah, I know. It feels incredibly weird. It'll come off with water, I promise.
All right.
Kind of like give me a little like close and go like suntan lotion or something. Like right on those eyelashes. Beautiful. Okay. Feeling good? Right? Cool. Excellent. Thank you, sir. Feeling okay?
Yeah.
Okay. You can just wipe that wherever you want to. That's fine. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead and put the head tray. We're gonna put that head tray right on top here. Hey guys, you good?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So we're just gonna kind of place this on. Go ahead and put your chin through, and something like that. Okay. Feel comfortable?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead and line them back. Okay. Now, whenever we're doing this actual project, what's going to happen is this. You guys are going to be working in teams, okay? You're going to have a partner. So you'll do it for your partner, and then your partner will do it for you. That's the trade-off, okay? So first things first, we need to mix up some plaster. And I've got a whole poop ton of plaster in this big old bucket right here. It is insanely heavy because plaster is very, very heavy, okay? So, hang on. Excuse me, sir. Oh my goodness, sir. All right, that's about as good as I'm going to get. Okay, woo! Plaster. Okay, so this is plaster repair, so you can go over to Home Depot or fancy art stores. I prefer Home Depot because it's cheaper. Don't get water in here, because basically what happens is this. Plaster is a form of gypsum. Gypsum is a mineral. Whenever you add water to gypsum or plaster, what ends up happening is it starts to solidify and kind of almost like concrete. Think about it like that, right? You put a little bit of water in and it... Basically what happens is it's going to suck all the water in, and as it does that, it hardens, right? You can actually take plaster, just like ceramic, you can pulverize it into a powder and then reuse it, because the mineral never stops wanting to absorb water. The only way to stop the process is to actually add on some kind of glaze, which is basically what we're going to end up doing. Okay. So we've worked with glazes, we've worked with kind of these kind of things before with ceramics. We're going to do the same basic process, but this is basically what you're going to end up with. Yeah. So what we're going to be making is a life mask or a life cast. Okay. You're going to end up, because plaster catches a lot of details, you're going to end up with a really, really good life cast. Okay. Now, there's one last really important thing that we have to think about. I'm going to show you how to mix up plaster, but we got to make sure that Mr. B there can breathe, all right? We got to make sure that our Canadian friends can breathe. So here's the thing. Whenever you're applying your plaster, and I'm telling you this now before I actually mix up the plaster because it goes very, very quickly as we're mixing it. Whenever I'm applying it, I'm going to avoid, at all costs, his nose. Okay? Not necessarily like the ball of the nose, but we're talking like the holes of the nose, right? I'm going to do everything in my power to avoid those. If you're at all concerned about it, you can actually take little straws and shove them up in there, and you can just kind of breathe through the nose. That does work, and I will have some straws for you. However, today we're just rocking out. Okay, feeling good? Okay, all right, cool. Here we go.
It doesn't get messy, does it?
Oh, it gets very messy.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it gets very messy. So, here's the thing. I'm going to start mixing up some plaster. Whenever you're using plaster, there are a couple different ways of doing it, but I'm going to show you probably the easiest way. So, whenever you mix up, it's pretty much just 1-to-1, right? You kind of go along here. I'm going to add a little bit of water, a little bit of plaster, so on and so forth. However, to make life a lot easier, I'm going to show you kind of the mountain or the volcano method. I'm going to show you how to do that. So first things first, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to fill my little jar up with some water, the amount of plaster that I want, okay? One thing I cannot stress enough, when you're done and you're getting messy and goopy and all that stuff, do not just frantically run over to the sink and wash it down. Again, this stuff is absorbent and becomes hard when it's near water, right? It's a really easy way of clogging the sink. Do not wash your plaster down the sink, please. I have a little trough, basically, where you can kind of rinse your stuff in, or rinse your hands into this kind of plasticky trough, that little bucket, you know. Rinse it in there. You'll be clean. You can scamper off to the bathroom and actually use soap and water and stuff. That's fine. But all the little chunklets of plaster, put them in the bucket that I'll have prepared for you, and that way it doesn't go down the drain, clog the drain. So here we go. Water. Hot and cold water does actually matter. Hot water will dry quicker. Cold water will dry slower. So I'm going to use a little bit of hot water, and by hot water I mean lukewarm because it's a school and we don't have hot water. Yes?
What if you have like
Say once more.
What if you have
We'll find a solution for that. Yeah. I do have little plastic like pre-made masks, which if you feel totally uncomfortable with this process, you are allowed to absolutely use. I'm not going to force you to do this. But I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay. That should probably do it. Alright, so remember this. I don't need enough plaster. Alright. I don't need enough plaster to actually fill his head. I need enough plaster to basically cover his head. That's not a lot of plaster, really. So please do not like fill up your bucket and like, yeah! Don't waste my plaster. Okay? It's just not that important, okay? Alright, so here we go. I'm going to show you kind of the volcano method here real quick. Like I said, there are different methods for actually mixing plaster. This is the one that I find works the best, and the visualization that works the best. It's almost like an analogy, okay? Here we go. Alright, so, plaster. Big old bucket. Also, FYI, try your best not to breathe this stuff in. Again, you have water in your body, you get little crystals, it's not good. Just saying. Alright, here we go. Oh, yeah, I mean a little bit. I mean, you don't want to like, a little bit's not going to kill you, but don't like stick your head in it. Alright, here we go. So I'm going to take just a little tiny scoople, right, just a little tiny bit, and I'm just going to kind of powder it on in here. And what's going to happen is this, almost like, I don't know what, like an Alka-Seltzer, you'll see it literally start to bubble inside of this water, because again, it is chemically reacting right now to the water, okay? And I'm going to keep adding it in. I'm not putting in big old chunks, I'm kind of shaking it in like you would with if you were baking at home or something, right? Just like flour, I'm kind of little shaky shake in there, shake it off, shake it off. As it goes in, what's happening is chemically, you'll start to see the bubbles in there, chemically what's happening is that gypsum inside the actual plaster of Paris is literally absorbing all the water around it. It's become this big goopy mess. Right now it still looks pretty watery, and that's okay. But I'm going to start pouring it in, and eventually, in a little bit here, you're going to start seeing a tiny little mountain or volcano kind of appear on top. Basically where the water no longer is absorbing the plaster. Right now it just sinks to the bottom and it disappears. But pretty soon you're going to start to see it kind of float on top of the water. That's what we're looking for. The second you get this little tiny island, you know basically the water has become fully, has absorbed all of the gypsum, all of the plaster that it's going to. And that means that we can kind of mix it up. Notice that I'm not mixing as I'm pouring in. See a little island starting to form, right? I'm not mixing as I'm going because this is, again, a chemical reaction. So if I were to start stirring this, I'm actually expediting the process. I'm speeding it up. I don't want it to totally turn into a rock solid form before I get it onto his face, right? So I wanted to keep it as liquidy as possible. So again, I'm just kind of pouring it in. Again, you're kind of seeing how it's floating on top, starting to get a little bit of an island. I'm going to give it a second. So it's kind of getting eaten by the water. And again, if you can't see, you're welcome to kind of get closer and kind of peek your head in. But that island is starting to get kind of consumed. Looks like it's almost a volcano, or almost a little island there. Dangerously close. You do not need a whole lot. You really don't need a whole lot. Okay, look how I'm starting to get a little volcano in there. You see it? Look at that. See that volcano up on top? It's not being absorbed, right? That means that the water is really taking all of the plaster that it's going to be able to take. Okay, so we're looking good. Okay, all right. I'm gonna put just a hair in more. You don't really need to do this. I'm just doing it for the sake of drying it out quicker so we can get it on his face for the sake of the demo. Now, one thing I have to stress, whenever you put this on, notice I'm not putting this directly into the sink. Again, you don't want to clog up the sink, okay? I'm going to take care of that in a second. So, one thing about plaster is, again, this is a literal chemical reaction. This is the same kind of reaction you would have if you were in chemistry class, okay? So, as we're going along here, that is really heavy. As we're going along, understand that this right now, what's happening in this jar is a chemical process. That chemical process is mixing and stirring. And in that process of mixing and stirring, it is generating energy. That energy is coming out in the form of heat energy, right? So, as you apply this to your face, you will feel a sensation of heat. I promise you, it will not burn you, okay? However, it absolutely will feel hot. I mean, you're gonna feel like you're in the sun. That's okay, but just know ahead of time, you're gonna feel it. I know. You all right, buddy? Okay. So right now I'm just kind of stirring, I'm mixing, I'm stirring this around. What you're kind of going for is the consistency of think like chocolate pudding, right? That's a good consistency, it is. It's a really good consistency. If it looks really watery, that's no bueno, okay? You want to get it to chocolate pudding consistency, okay? So I'm stirring, I'm mixing, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is way more plaster than I actually need. Okay, I'm doing it for the sake of the demo, for the sake of your head. You'll see how little plaster I actually need to cover up his face. Okay, so I'm just kind of mixing and stirring. And remember, the more I mix it, right? The more I mix it, the more I'm activating this chemical process of hardening all of this plaster. Okay, and you will absolutely, when you do this, you'll feel like right now it's nice and creamy, and I promise you, very quickly you're gonna start scooping it onto their face, and you'll feel it as it starts to harden. It like happens like a light switch. It just clicks on, and it's hard, right? So you will feel that happen. Okay. Feeling good, buddy?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. How are we doing on time?
9:24.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. So this process right now that I'm about to do, this is gonna take probably about 20, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes to actually dry. So you'll be hanging out here for a little bit. Sorry. Okay. While this is going to go on here and while it starts to dry, we're going to hang out and I'll talk a little bit more. But I'm just going to go ahead and grab a little bit with my hands. Feeling good? Here we go. It's going to be just kind of goopy. Okay. All right, so you're going to want to close your eyeballs. Okay, closed. Good. It may have done a squint or anything. All right. And here it starts to come. Okay.
Aren't you so glad you volunteered for this, Sam? Hey, Sam. It's not even like you were peer pressured or anything.
Okay. Again.
Alternate assignment?
Yeah, totally. There's an alternate.
My eyelashes are really important to me.
That's fair. So notice I'm kind of just globbing it on. I'm not really worried about making sure that it's perfect or anything. It does not need to be super thick. Okay, I'm going to work that out in a second. But remember, we want to avoid the nose. Here comes down on the chin, okay? Kind of keep talking to your partner as you're going along. Make sure that they know where you're at. It's very jarring whenever all of a sudden a wet goop is just thrown upon like your chin or something. Tell them where you're at. Okay, I'm going on your cheek. I'm going to kind of work around on this side, okay?
Because he knows what he's doing.
I do.
One of these.
Now already, look at this. No longer pudding, it's now like solid jello. It's already hardening as I'm speaking, okay? Feeling good, buddy? Okay. So again, I'm now kind of massaging it in. It's like you went to the masseuse. Going over your lips, you ready?
Are we allowed to Vaseline our whole face?
You are absolutely allowed to Vaseline your whole face. Okay, can you still breathe okay? Okay. All right. All right. Here we go. Now I'm using way more than I need to, again, for the sake of expediency, okay? I'm gonna go over your nose. I'm gonna leave the tip of your nose out, okay? Still breathing okay? Not claustrophobic, right? Okay, good.
I am.
If you need anything, give me a holler, okay?
That's just little
Still breathing okay? All right, so at this point he is encased. He's in there. And notice, look at all this excess plaster that I have. Whenever you mix up, you don't want this, okay? Don't mix a whole lot of plaster. You just don't need it. Now, I'm going to let this actually harden, and then I can kind of crack it out of there because it's a plastic jar. But I'm going to go through and just kind of smooth this out real quick. It's really already very solid, okay? The heat hasn't actually set in quite yet, but I mean, you can tell. I mean, this is no longer that goopy pudding that I was doing before, right? It's solid, right? These are. Hey, bud, come on in. So I'm just gonna go ahead, kind of make sure. Sometimes you'll get little cracks and stuff that happens. Just making sure that he's up in there and kind of smoothing all this out.
Also, when it's
that's
time to take it off,
It's bothering me
What's that?
when it's time to take it off, like a spot, right?
Yep. You take the whole thing off like a big mask. Absolutely.
You should take his shoes off and tickle.
He's stuck now. Still doing okay on there? Okay. So he
There's a
can't
little-
see anything. What's that? I'm sorry.
There's a little part on the chin you missed.
Oh, it is. I'm sorry. Might be a little too late.
You're so
All right. It is definitely turning hard at this point.
I was scared about my
Okay, definitely going hard at this point. So, what's going to happen is this. Slowly, he's going to start to feel it constrict on his face. Okay, start to get kind of tight on his face. That's okay. As he's going along, eventually you'll start feeling heat. When you start feeling heat, you know you're sitting pretty because it's only going to be a handful of minutes before it totally dries. Basically, it's like it's air drying itself, right? So, I've got a whole bunch of plaster on my hands. And again, look at this. It's already totally hardened itself. Look at that. Like rocks. Okay? So, what's happening right now? No, it's not quite hot yet. It is literally just starting to suck up whatever moisture is inside of that water. It's just sucking it up, just like a straw, right? Still doing okay in the air? Okay, good. Got to make sure he's still alive occasionally. So, this is starting to harden. Now, it's hardening on the outside a little bit more because there's more air contact, right? On the inside, just like with whenever you're baking a cake, it's a little bit goopy still on the inside. But I'm going to bet, if I asked him, can you actually feel it hardening a little bit? See, he's saying, is it starting to get hot at all? Okay, all right, I got a long moan. I'm going to say that means absolutely, Kozak. So, he is absolutely just hanging out right now. We're just going to let this air dry, like I said. Now, whenever you're doing yours, you're going to want to make sure to do lie down here until it is absolutely nice and dry. Again, ballpark, anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes, and then it'll be pretty good and bone dry. But right now, he's just chilling. I like your pillow, by the way. That was a good choice for the yarn. I cannot stress enough, just one more time, please. You really, really do not want to rinse your hands down the sink right now. I know whenever you get this, you're like, it's so gross, I want to wash my hands. Don't. And I don't mean like our sink or versus like the school sink. I mean, water, this, and a sink is a horrible, horrible combination, okay? So what you're going to end up doing, you can kind of see I'm doing already. I'm going to kind of clean my hands, just naturally get these little crumb bums off, right? Then I'm going to go over to the sink and I'm going to have a little plastic wrap, I'm going to have that little bucket. You kind of just dunk your hands in and take them off. Then you can actually clean your hands, okay? Cool?
Yeah,
Good.
what is that?
Okay, yes.
This girl who graduated last year just tweeted saying, I just watched a Snapchat of a kid hanging from inside the ceiling at Kikatan. Home of everyday greatness.
Home of everyday greatness. That's good. It looks realistic.
It actually does.
Right? They did a good job. All right, starting to get hot? Okay. So, at this point, we're starting to get kind of toasty. I'm going to knock on your head. Hang on one second. Okay, ready? And hear that? Right? You hear it? Here, listen. Go really quiet. Ready? Right? It is getting hard. Was that too loud for you? I'm sorry. Okay, still doing okay on air? Okay, I promise. I know it's hot, but just stay with it, okay? So, at this point, it is getting very, very toasty. I can physically feel it. Actually, here, come on up. Do you want to touch it real quick? Okay. Is it warm? Right? You want to touch it? Go ahead. It's warm, right? Now again, it's not like oven hot, but it's like a nice summer day. Like it's toasty. Okay. Doing okay? Okay. All right. So we are nearly completed at this point. It's feeling pretty good. Is it starting to feel like solid on your face? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna wiggle it just for a second. We're not taking it off quite yet. I'm just gonna test it. Okay. Does it feel like it's a solid hunk? Okay, so it's kind of on there. Okay. Okay, good man. All right, so we're gonna give it another handful of minutes just before we totally wrap up here. Now again, in a perfect universe, you would actually let this sit and harden for a little bit of time. Now I'm going to tell you the last little note ahead of time while I'm waiting on this to fully cure. Whenever you're all done, you cannot make a cast of this yet. This is kind of the top of the mold. Eventually, we're going to take plaster and kind of dump it in here, right? Couple things. A, what the heck are we going to do about the nose? Well, you're just going to take a little bit extra plaster and you can just kind of dump it over top. It'll be fine. If you'd like to, you're absolutely welcome to hold your breath and kind of like smear a little bit over top. You can do that. I will tell you this, for the sake of it being a high school class, please don't do that. It's a really good way to suffocate and die. So let's not do that. Just leave a hole for the nose. I promise you'll be okay, all right? I know someone in this class is going to have the feeling of like, I can just hold my breath. Don't. Just don't. I know, like you say no, right? Okay.
He's saying no, you just can't.
He says, don't do it, don't do it. And you gotta listen to the guy in the mask, right? All right, so in a second I'm gonna take this off. What we need to do is this, we're gonna let this plaster, we're gonna leave it on our shelf and we're gonna leave it there for an entire day so that it goes from this hot kind of, hardened mass into a nice cold hunk. And what's gonna happen is that cold hunk is gonna constrict again, just like hot and cold, right? Cold constricts. So it's gonna constrict a little bit and then we can pour in our plaster. We'll release that, we'll put in a little bit of Vaseline, we'll release that, and then you'll have a positive, because we're making a negative right now. So this is a negative. We'll pour in, make a positive, and he will have an identical match to his head. Cool?
Can we write our names on it?
You can, but I mean, it's still gonna be your head, so.
No, we'll put it all over there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome to just write your name on it. Marker will work just fine. Yeah, that's okay. All right, so feeling good? Feeling good? Sir, you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, still pretty toasty? Okay. So again, in a perfect universe, I would actually take my time and let him just sit here for like 10 minutes, but I've been talking long enough. I'm gonna pull it off. It is a demo, so I'm not too stressed about it. Okay, feeling ready? All right, here's what you're gonna do. I'm gonna tell you, okay? In a second, I'm gonna have you slowly sit up. I'm gonna have you put your hands on top of your face. So you're gonna kind of catch it as it slowly falls off, okay? Kind of lean over like you're taking a puke or something, and then we're just gonna kind of wiggle wobble it right off of your face, okay? Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm gonna, basically what I just told him, I'm gonna have him lean forward. He's gonna hang on to his mask, and I'm gonna help him pull it off, okay? All right, buddy, you ready? Okay, hands on top. Okay, slowly sit up. I got you back of your head. Come on down. There you go. All right, feeling good? Okay, kind of come on down. There you go. Lean forward like you're hurling. Beautiful. Slowly heave it off. Look at that. Beautiful. All right, let's see. Welcome to the world. You okay? You okay? Any in your eyeballs? You all right?
Kind of.
Okay. All right. So, take a peek. That's your face.
Whoa.
All right. There you go. So that's the negative of his head right there. That's the negative. And we can go through, we can just peel this plastic wrap right off. It comes right out of there. And there is his mold. All right, there's his mold.
Yeah, you got to
Okay. A couple little air holes. Again, in a perfect universe, we would take care of that. But again, kind of peel off the cardboard. We can use this cardboard again. And there's his mold right there. Cool. Awesome. Cool. So you are done, my friend. That's it. We're gonna let this totally dry, and we'll just leave it over on our shelf there. And in the meantime, we're gonna help clean you up. Okay?
Alright.
Cool. That's it. Feel good? Okay, guys. Hang on for a second. Let me help him out, and then we'll get moving. Okay? Thank you, sir.